Hi, folks. At the movies with film. Just cleaning my screen. Got a movie for you tonight that was meant for drive-ins. Always when you went to a drive-in, remember when you got there, you remembered that you needed to clean the screen. It's always like that. I always got there and I thought, now, usually I would say, I'm going to remember to clean the screen before I got to the movie. But I would forget. And I'd have to crawl out and spit on the windshield and do all kinds of stuff, grab books out and chip off the mosquitoes and things like that in order to see what great fare that drive-in had for us that weekend. And I used to go to drive-ins very frequently. I almost lived there for a while because they had the best movies and cheap. I could see 3, 4, 5 of them at a time for $1.50 in the safety of my own car. Have a lot of fun with those films. Here's one that we might have seen. Now, I wasn't watching drive-in movies in 1959. Okay, I'm not that old yet, folks. But 1959, here is a film that was produced and went directly to drive-ins here in this country. It was released as Terror is a Man. Our copy calls it Blood Creature. Blood Creature. Terror is a Man, I think, is a better title. So when you see that Blood Creature title come up, just sort of mentally erase it, okay, and put in Terror is a Man. This is a Philippine production, shot in English. Okay, it's a Philippine production. It's one of those Eddie Romero produced films. Eddie Romero, I remember seeing a lot of his films at drive-ins. He produced a whole series of interesting color films that dealt with this place called Blood Island that had this chlorophyll monster type thing that terrorized people. And I thought they were, anybody who'd call a monster a chlorophyll monster deserved some kind of credit. Now, Eddie Romero directed a lot of those films. He didn't direct this. This one is directed by a guy named Geraldo de Leon, and he worked a lot with Eddie Romero. It stars Francis Lederer, who just previous to this was in Return of the Vampire. He plays a doctor who is in the Dr. Moreau tradition. You know that Wells story, the idea of this man who is out on an island who's doing vivisection experiments on animals, trying to make animals into humans, making that big evolutionary step. And there's a lot of talk in this film about how evolution moves small over increments of millions of years and things like that. And this guy, this Gerard, he just does not have the patience to wait for millions of years to watch these creatures evolve. So what does he do? Well, he speeds it up. He takes a panther, big cat, and he does all kinds of experiments on it, cutting it up, changing it, and turning it into a man. He even does a really cool part in this film is when he does a surgery on the vocal cords of this creature and allows it to talk, and it is able to say, man, in sort of a cat-like way. And I think that Terror is a Man angle works real well. He has on this island his wife, who is his assistant. She sort of puts up with it, doesn't like it. She's sort of torn. She feels sorry for the creature. The creature kind of falls in love with her as well. It's got one of those classic scenes where the creature has a chance to, he kills everybody, but when he sees the woman near the end, he has to kind of carry her around a while. We like movies where the monster has to carry a pretty woman around. Seems classic. We see that all the time. It happens in here. So if you haven't seen a movie lately where a monster carries a woman around, here's your chance. Stick around. It's going to happen in here. Now, I was watching this film with my wife, and she found this film to be quite disturbing. Okay, one, she's a real cat lover. Okay, so the idea of them experimenting on cats, ooh, that wasn't good. Likewise, this is a disturbing film, the things they do to this creature. And I've always found the Moreau story to be somewhat disturbing anyway. Now, this one doesn't deal with a whole colony of creatures like you find in other Moreau films. What is the law? Not to walk on all fours. What is the law? We don't get any of that law business. I always like that. I kind of use that phrase myself around the house sometimes. What is the law? Obey film. Okay. Doesn't ever work, but I try to use it. So we have a single creature in here. And this creature breaks out every once in a while and causes havoc and things like that. The Philippine take on the horror film I found to be quite attractive. We have another film, Vampire People, which we found the copy of that, right, Smokey?
Yes, we did.
Okay, so that's coming up soon enough. And that's another one of the Romero things. The Philippines have an odd odd take on the horror science fiction mode. I think you're going to enjoy this film. I really was taken by it. It's very disturbing. I have to admit that the print that we have is a little bit choppy in places. I think someone performed some vivisection on the tape itself, because at times it'll jerk across the whole person's dialogue so that you only get like the greatest hits of what they said, if you're lucky. Put up with it, okay? I always like to think of these things as sort of fragmented texts. And these fragmented texts are sort of more valuable that way. Okay? Anybody can get the whole thing, right? For us, it's such a sacred thing that we find even fragments of it to be worthwhile, worthy of genuflection, let's say. So, well, we got a bit of a fragment here. Terror is a Man, 1959. De Leon, which is kind of nice. I think that means lion, right, in Spanish. So we've got some of that stuff going on in here. The cat experimentation, things like that. Blood Creature, call it what you want. We got Francis Lederer, and we've got some pretty good acting going on in this film. Enjoy it. Let's roll them, Smokey. The screen is all screwed up. I saw a smudge here. Wait a minute. There we go. Yeah.